Okay, everyone says editing emails is hard, that you need a designer, a copywriter, a complex Figma tab setup to make it work, but that's just not true. Basically anyone, even an average Joe with zero design background, can build high converting, good looking emails, and today I'm gonna prove it. However, disclaimer, the truth is the best emails are not built just by theory, they're built by actually doing. I've been reading a book, it's called Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb, and he says, the knowledge we get by tinkering, via trial and error, experience, and the workings of time, in other words, contact with the earth, is vastly superior to that obtained through reasoning. And when it comes to designing emails, this couldn't be more true. You just simply have to do it. So whether you're just getting started or you're a 7-figure brand doing it all by yourself, you'll definitely walk away with something real in this video. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through a real-world hands-on process for building emails that convert without overthinking it or over-designing it. And we'll go from setting up your design environment to generating layout ideas, and finally building an email step by step. Let's jump right into it. So the first thing that we want to go ahead and create is something called our design environment. What you're seeing here is actually the initial setup that we use in our agency. First, we begin with an email plan and then the design rationale. But the design rationale is all these elements that you see here. It's the logos that we have for our brand, the colors that we have for our brand, the font that we have for our brand, the buttons that we have for our brand. We want to put all of these things in one place so that we can make our job easier today and also tomorrow. So this is the email that we're going to go ahead and redesign together. It's a redesign from a blend called Fleur and Bee, and we're going to show you how we make all of the elements inside of this finished product here together. So let's first start by building the design rationale. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and head over to this website, Fleur and Bee, and the first thing that we want to do is honestly just take a complete screenshot of the page. Why this is helpful is because with the native Figma color picker, we can go ahead and fill in all of these colors that the website is already using. If you were doing this with your own time, you would obviously go through and add all of the various colors and their actual color numbers. So we can pick these off-whites, these pinks, it's got this black, these are white, you know, this kind of cap color seems pretty on brand as well. So color pick that. Then this brown seems pretty interesting, honestly. Color pick that. Let's go back to the website, see if we can grab another color here. Black. Let's see, I don't know if we got this this whitish here, so let's go back in, throw that in. Awesome. So what we just did is we just grabbed all the colors that are kind of relevant to our brand, right? So you can see that we've got a colored palette, and if it was you, you'd come in and replace all of these numbers here with the actual numbers for the respective colors. But now let's go ahead and pick the logo. What I'm about to show you is something revolutionary, so please pay attention. For any website that you're going to, there's an option called Inspect Element. The way that you can navigate there is you can right-click the page and then hit Inspect, or if you are using your keypad, you can hit F12. And what this allows us to do is see any of the elements that are actually on this page. So we can click this up arrow here and point our cursor to various items that are on the page, and it will give us the code behind it, or the elements, like quite literally the assets that are behind whatever item that we are hovering over. What we are going to do is actually make a email for one of their products, which is actually their facial cleanser, this product here. So as you can see, they actually have a lot of copy, a lot of neat items that we can use to build our email, such as these icons, a lot of amazing lifestyle imagery, copy once again, imagery, and we want to be able to take all of this and use it in our email. How do we do that? Let's open the Inspect Element item, and you can actually navigate over here to something called Network. What this means is all of the assets on the page, as they load up inside of your network, they will be loaded into this console here. So what you want to do is you want to refresh the page, and as you can see, every single asset from this website, at least that has loaded up, has now been transferred to this console. So we can see some of the user-generated content images, and we can sort by document, CSS, JSS, font, imagery, media, and we went right away to imagery, right? Because we want to take some of the images off of this page. And we can see some of the icons that they use, we can see some of the lifestyle imagery, we can also see the logo, which is in an SVG format. So let's say we want to get the logo, let's open that in a new tab. This is hard to copy as an image, so what we'll do is we'll take a screenshot. However, if we just post it the way that it is, we might have a bit of issues getting the color to actually play through. So I'll show you how we can remove the background from this image here. So let's go back to our Figma design here. So if we paste it here, we can see that obviously it doesn't load up the way that we want. We want to get this background kind of out of the way. So for this, we need another tool. Let's go to a tool. You can look this up. There are many different background removers that you can use. We're just going to use this one, and I can link it inside the description. You want to go ahead and post your image, and what it does is it takes the background away, and now you have a workable file that you can use as your logo. So let's download this together. Let's put this as Flurry logo. Awesome. So now we've got the Flurry logo. We want to go ahead and drop that into our design together. Nice. So what we have is our first design. Now there may be some instances where or first logo, there may be some instances where you want to make this logo a different color. What you might want to do then is copy this over. How we're making a duplicate is we're holding Option on the MacBook, and we're just dragging it to a place outside of the respective frame. Then what we do is, with a different color, you made a rectangle. How we made this was with R, and then we just drew over it. We want to change the color of this logo, so we'll align these elements with Option H to align them together, then Option V to make them centered. And we are going to now make a mask. So once we open up our options menu here in Figma, as you can see the layers tab, which is just the order of which objects appear front or back inside of the Figma tab, we have this option here which is called as mask. So we just used the rectangle that we placed over our logo as a mask. And we can actually then navigate over to our elements here, and we can change the color. So let's say we wanted it to be this color. Now our logo is this. Purplish kind of color. Let's say we wanted it to be this brown. Now our logo is this brown, and you can quickly understand the power and versatility of building it out this way. So now we have our logos, and we can pretty much play around with this as we go through building the rest of the email. Now what we want to do is we want to get the fonts. So as we went back to the website, we can see that we have some of the fonts that are listed for us right here. Now you can sometimes just download the font right away. So these are Cerebri Sans. I mean, you can probably download the font from here. However, you can use another tool which will also allow you to understand the font that's inside of the page. This is an extension, it's a Chrome extension called Fonts Ninja. So once you load up Fonts Ninja, it works similar to the inspect element function, where you can hover over different text items inside of the page, and it will tell you what is the font actually being used. So as we can see, the fonts that are being used here are P2 Mackinac Pro Medium, Cerebri Sans Regular, Cerebri Sans Book, inside of the button, Cerebri Sans. So you got Cerebri Sans, Mackinac Pro, and Open Sans Regular for a lot of the different contents that are on their website. What you would then do is you would go and download this icon, or if you're working with a brand, they would send you that material, and then you can upload it into your fonts library and thus have it be accessible in Figma. If you need another video, I can show you how it works. But we've already went through and we've downloaded the fonts. What we want to do is we want to put them inside of our design environment. So as we saw, they're using Cerebri Sans. So we want to make some of these fonts here, Cerebri Sans. And you would go through and change all of the fonts to match the brand identity, okay? Then we want to examine the buttons that they have on their website, see how things are looking, what they already have going on. And you can see that they use a more black-filled, rounder button style. So we want to go ahead and create that button so that we can just have it readily available for us every single time that we want to make an email. So the way that we can do that is we want to start by making a rectangle, okay? And when you open up the console, you can see that our rectangle here has different parameters. We have the dimensions, which is width and height, and we also have the option to lock their ratio, which means that every time that we adjust it, they adjust connected to one another. So let's make this button height about 150, and then we can choose the button radius to be however that we want. 450 seems to be good enough. And then we want to put text actually to be together with this button. So we can make a text box by pressing T, letter T. Then we want to center our text. We want to make it on brand with the font, and then we can type button. Okay. We'll put these two elements together. We'll select them both, do Command H to center them, and then Command V to center them together. As you can see, the button is top centered at the moment, the button text. So we can middle center the button text, and we have a nice centered button. But as I mentioned, our fill color was a little bit black, and the borders of the rectangle are a little bit rounder. So this is when you go to corner radius. You can actually type a radius. We'll go with 35. And as you can see, it made it slightly more, so we can see that the radius is actually significantly higher. Let's go with 100. And now we're kind of arriving at that image that we saw on the website. The way to change the color, we'll activate the color picker native in Figma, and you can do that with Option C, or rather Control C. We'll color pick the black. We'll group these together with Command G, and there we have our button. We'll make another copy with Option drag out, and we can choose to change the color of the background with a click of the button, and then we'll change the text to black. Why it looks like this now is because there's no stroke, so we'll add a stroke to the button, and there we go. We have our two buttons that will be used in the majority of the designs. Since we already made it, we'll go through with the ones that we already have here, but now we have our design environment set up, and all that's left is building the actual email. So let's go ahead and build the email together. To make a successful email design, industry standards are at the moment using an email that's about 600 pixels wide. This allows the email to load a little bit faster when you start cutting it. So we'll start by making a frame. You can make a frame here in Figma by holding F and then dragging to your desired size. We'll make the width 600, and the height will depend on the email that we are working with, but I typically just make it pretty long to begin with. And now let's start building out this email together. So we thought this email was pretty plain. It's like not as much texture, not as much colors, not as much pop. So we want to change that. We'll make the background of the frame this kind of peachish color here. And again, we're activating the color picker by using Control C. And there we go. Our frame is now this kind of peachy, off-whitish color. And we want to drop our logo into the design. So if we come here, we copied the logo that we worked hard to make, and we put it in our frame, but obviously we need to resize it, right? So let's make this 150 by 150, see how big it is. And we can center it always with Control H or Control V once we put it in the frame, which aligns it to the frame itself. So this is our logo. I think that we can make it just a little bit higher and a little bit wider. So we'll go 200, and then we'll go 350. See what happens there. And then Control H, and center it up there. We want it maybe 50. It's a little bit too much. So let's do 25. Let's do 20. So since it's quite big, you can rather actually just move it up there. Awesome. So then we want to get our header text up here, which says we're putting the word clean in cleanser. And how we do that once again is by T with a text box, and then you can write in the text, right? We're putting the word clean in cleanser. But as you can see here, there's actually a difference in this clean here. We wanted to accent this clean. So let's first make this the actual font that it is. Let's go Cerebri Sans, but we're gonna go Cerebri Sans Pro, which is just regular. And we're gonna size this up to maybe 40. So we'll size this up actually to, what's the current size now? Size it up to 37, so that it fits pretty cleanly inside of the frame and has a bit of the diagonal look towards directing the user's eyes towards the button. Now you can see here that we actually need to make this two separate elements because we want this clean to be differently formatted than the rest. So inside of Figma, you actually cannot uniformly format one singular word. So we're going to work around that together. What we're going to do is we are going to remove this clean by making it the color of the background. So now that clean is disappeared basically. It's still there, but we need to make another text. How we can do this is we can Option drag, like we've done here, and we can now change the text of every single thing here to be the text of the background, and the clean to now be the text of black. We can bold every single thing inside of this element here by going now to Sans or Cerebri Sans bold, and then we can add the exclamation points like we have, or the quotation points like we have done in the prior step. Now, when we center these and put them on top of one another, we should be able to get a different result, but we'll see how we need to manipulate the rest of the email to actually make this work. So once again, we'll do the same thing, make all the items the same color as the background. In reality, we might need to make some changes. And then we'll go from there. So let's actually just go with the color clean, or the word clean rather, and then insert it in ourselves. So let's make this the color of the background. Awesome. And as you can see, we're kind of getting there. We do need to manipulate the sizing. So let's make this 20 for now. We'll go ahead and we'll make this Sans Pro the bold version, and then we'll up the size a little bit. Maybe we might want to make the text a little bit closer to one another, but as you can see, the email itself, or at least the text, is starting to take shape. It's over for now since we have already done it. Then we want to make this button, right? So like we've done before, we're going to go ahead and copy our button from our design rationale. So we're doing the same step as before, and we'll center it with Command H and Command V, but we just want it centered. And then we'll make this button height a little bit smaller. So we'll make this button about 50, and then we'll make the width, let's say 300. Center it again. I think the button can be a little bit larger, so we'll do 350, and then we'll center it again. Then we want to change the text here to say shop, face, wash, but as it is now, the text is a little bit bigger for the box, so we'll go with 30, and then we'll go sans, or Cerebri sans bold. And as you can see, we've got shop, face, wash, but if we want to change the face or the typeface, shop, face, wash. And there we go. Then we want to make the button height a little bit bigger one more time. 100's a little bit too big. Go 75. 75 is a little bit. Let's go 65. Awesome. And there we have the hero section of our email. Now let's get this hero image. I told you we need to get a lot of different elements from the website itself. When we go back to inspect element, we can actually go ahead and get this image from their website. So we'll go ahead and see the source, and we can copy the image. So let's copy the image, go ahead and put it back in our design. And here it goes. So we'll drop that into our frame, but actually there is a cooler image that we can use. So if we go down, we got a lot of this lifestyle imagery. And here we actually have, if we close out of this, here we actually have this image right here, which pops out a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to inspect. We're going to take that. We're going to get the actual source itself, and that's going to be our hero image. So let's go back in. Let's put it in design. Awesome. So as you can see, the email is starting to take a little bit of shape, but what do we notice? That this is not so flush from the beginning of the email to the end of the email. So to resolve that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a blend. So how do we do that? It's by creating a rectangle. And we want to blend this rectangle into this image here. And we can do that a couple ways. The way that I'm going to show you today is with a linear gradient. So we're going to go ahead and fill, and then we'll go here, which is gradient. And it gives us the gradient from top, bottom, and we can quickly rotate it to be from side to side. And we are going to color pick all of the colors that are at this top portion of the image, so that it looks like we have a very clean blend between the background of the email itself and then the actual hero image. So within the gradient, you can come in and you can pick any section of the gradient, and then let's just color pick the colors that are most close to that line that we want to take out. And as you can see, that line is already starting to look non-existent. So we're going to get as close as we can as possible to that. And just like that, we got an extension of our hero image. Barely visible. And now we can push this to the back, and all the text that we made looks flawless with the image. So we'll scale it up, and then we have our header text, call to action, hero image, and let's get moving on the rest of the email. Now what we want to do is we want to have a bridge section showing a bit of social proof before we get into the actual elements of the content of the facial cleanser. So how we did this is we made another rectangle, And we made that rectangle cutting a little bit of the image. And if we go to our design rationale, we can color pick that nice pink color to give us the bridge section. Now, we did want to have a bit of the social proof here, so we included some of the brands that they have on their website. So let's go back here, and they're continuously shouting some of the social proof that they have, so might as well include it in the email. And as you can see here, we got Allure, Nylon, Cosmopolitan, Birdie, and CNN, and these are all items that we can simply just grab. So let's copy all of them as the logos that they have been, of the magazines that they have been featured in, and then let's go back into our design. So what we can now do here is we can set them up. So let's go ahead and paste this in. And we want them to be the same dimensions at least. So we're gonna make a copy of this birdie, and then we are going to paste the next one into that one. Let's see what happens here. Nice, so they're roughly the same size. Let's do some resizing here. Then we'll also make, duplicate these. This one, we're gonna paste in nylon, paste it in there, okay. We'll do like this. We'll make another one, which is Allure. So we'll paste in Allure. Awesome. So we'll quickly group these. We'll center them with Option V, as always. We'll tidy them up. So we'll distribute horizontal spacing. Then we'll distribute vertical spacing. Then we'll center them with Control V. Awesome. We'll group these so that we can manipulate the sizing together. So what we're doing is we're holding Shift, and the dimensions are remaining the same as we manipulate the sizing. So these are actually quite massive. So we need to manipulate the sizing quite a bit. So we'll keep going in until they're about the size that we need for our email. Awesome. So now what we can do is we can drag that in and center it with Command H one more time. And they still look a little bit big, so we'll take one more size down, then put them all in with, or center them all in with Control H. Then you notice that we have a bit of a border here. We can actually do that with stroke. So we want to give the stroke to this rectangle that we created here, and I'll make it an obscene color so it's quite visible. So you can see the stroke that got made in the image. Then you can actually determine where the stroke gets made and the thickness, so center, outside, and you can play with the thickness with this button here. What we ended up doing was going with an outside thickness, and going back to our colors that we color picked from the website, we wanted a lighter color, so we picked this more lightish pink here. So as you can see, it goes a pretty smooth section going from the hero image to some of our social proof, and then into the next portion of the email, which talks about the ingredients. It's the same steps as before. We're just going to make a copy over here, center it up. As if you were building this, you would have your own text that's ready to go if you made an email plan. Same fundamentals for the button, so we're just going to copy it down. Then we have our button, same size, same fundamentals, just change the text. Let's get clean. Awesome. Now we're going into the section where we want to actually talk about the different ingredients inside of the email. So let's make this in two ways. First, we're going to make a rectangle. And as we make this rectangle, what we notice about the rectangle is that it has the corner radius. So same way, we go into the corner radius and we make it until it looks in our desired image. Let's go with 25. That looks pretty okay. And it looks like there's a border as well as another rectangle helping us offset the various items that are inside of the email and the description. So we're going to make a copy of this, and we're going to just put it on top of the one that we just made. So let's center these, align them, but this one we're going to make a different color so we can have some distinction, and we're going to actually make it much smaller than the current rectangle that we have. But our corners are still a little bit radius, and I'll make this a different color so it's a bit visible. And we want to individually change the radius of these corners. How you can do this is by holding Option and just drag the respective corner. So now it looks like this is a individual, or these are two pills that are working together. Oops. Good, you want to hold Control on the radius and then change it. So now we have a block for our image and then a block for our text. As we see here, there's also a stroke. So we'll put a stroke on both of these, and it looks like it's a black stroke. That's about 1. Now we'll group them together with Command G, and we have our product section, like the information about the product. Since we have 3 of them, we'll make 3 of them now together here. And we'll do something called auto layout so that we can play with the spacing between each of these much easier. So when you have an auto layout, it allows you to create equidistance between each of the elements within that layout together. So we'll make this about 20 apart, and then we'll go ahead and remove the frame as well as the auto layout since we're finished with it. So let's ungroup, and then we have each of our individual cells that are able to move together. Awesome, let's place them in the email. Then how we built this next section is we colored the various rectangles different colors. So once again, your native color picker, make sure that you got the right one, and you can go through all of the different colors that you picked already from the website. So had you had this available in your color swatch here, this would be a very easy process for you. And then we made the bigger rectangle, it's just this white color. Awesome. Same concept with building actually the text. We have the more header text style that we make the exact same way. So I'm just gonna copy it over here for us. And then each of the respective items text. Let's talk about these images. These are just various images that were found on Google with the respective products. So how you can do that is by searching them online and then removing their background so that you can have these various icons that correspond with your product. Now, there is a note here. Each of these items have a slight shadow that you can see. You can use some programs to do this. However, you can also use Figma to create a shadow in the offset of your image. So let's go this together. As you can see, we just removed the drop shadow. You want to go to Effects and then Add Drop Shadow. You can actually position the shadow to be in XY, so offset by up or down, or offset by left or right, regarding how much of a shadow, how strong of a shadow you would like to create in an image. And there can actually also be a blur, which helps it seem a little bit more natural, a little bit more professionally taken. So that's how we had a drop shadow to each of the respective products, just to make it look like it's a part of the actual email itself. Awesome. So we're gonna copy in all of these other elements, and I trust that when you're doing this, you'll make sure that they're nice and centered. But our email is taking shape. We also have one more button, just so that the readers, if they are interested rather in the ingredients, they can go check out the product page. So that's the middle section, so the main body of the email. What are the ingredients of this facial cleanser and why should they get it? Then now we're going into our finishing our body, our footer section, and we saw actually this really cool lifestyle image when we went to their website. So let's go back to their website, and here it is, right? So perfect demonstration of how the product's getting used. It's just overall high quality. We can inspect the element. We can copy this image as well. So let's copy it and put it in our design. But as you notice, there's a problem. We have this humongous background in the way. So we're gonna use the same tool that we used last time, which is the background remover, and we are going to remove the background from this image. Let's see if the background remover does a very good job and has done an outstanding job removing the background, and we're simply going to save it. So let's save it as Fleur and Bee hands, and we can go ahead and drop that into our email. So let's go back to our design here, drop that into our email, and we have rocking lifestyle imagery that is guiding our email here. So we want to offset that. Awesome. And now we're going into the, let's center that up. Now we're going into the footer section of our email, and we wanted it to make it look like these hands are kind of popping off the page for a bit of design element. So we'll make another rectangle here. We'll make our color picker, grab those colors, and we actually added a stroke here, only to the top. So we'll add stroke again, then we'll actually customize where we see. So it's normally set by default to all, but we'll put the stroke on top. Set that width here, look like a width of 30. We'll go ahead and color pick the desired color, and then we'll push it to the background so it looks like the hand is kind of popping out of the background. Awesome. Then what we did is we just built our footer section pretty simply. we went and got the logo one more time. We'll pull it out to the foreground, and we can do this by command close brackets. And then we do need to change the color. So we can go to the mask group here, rectangle, and change the color to be that white color. And then we have our logo. It's a little bit large, so let's downsize it. Let's make it 100. And then we'll center it with Option H. Let's actually make it 150, settle it with Option H. And then we saw on their website that they had some logos, just dropping a little bit more information on the brand itself, some of their value points. And this can actually be something that we include in the email to give the readers one more reminder. So as you can see here, it's vegan product, cruelty-free, and paraben, which is a harmful product, free. So what we can do is we can copy those images. Once again, you can use inspect elements to go ahead and download those images natively. Let's go ahead and copy them since that they're available here. So we'll copy this plant, this bunny, and then this drop. Let's go ahead and put them in our design. And what do we have here? We got our drop, we got the bunny, and we got the plant. Awesome. So what we can do is we can group these kind of like we did with the logos. We can create an auto layout. We want them to be in the same centered line, and then we also want them to be distributed horizontally well. And then we will downsize them to be the same size. Since we are going to add some text, we want to separate them out a bit. So we'll separate them out and then distribute one more time horizontal spacing. It might not look the best as we drop it in, but then we have some work to do with regards to editing. We're going to group these contents, then center it so that they are aligned well. We'll also center this one more time. Awesome. Then we'll ungroup them, and then individually we'll try to center all of the items. And then we want to put the text that we have, right? So same concept, T, create a text, and you can write whatever text is necessary. So hydrant, cruelty-free, which is exactly like we saw on the website. Center aligned, vegan, and that is the conclusion of our email. So we'll go ahead and close this frame that we made earlier so that the email looks flush. And we'll make any last minute changes that we need. So this was the complete design of our email, and in less than 40 minutes we could make this email together. With regard to exporting, I can make a whole nother video about that. However, if you are a 7-figure brand owner, new owner looking to get into emails, please fill out the link below to schedule a call with me and my team, and we'd love to write and design your emails for you, or at the very least give an audit on your Klaviyo account. But that'll be the video.